Hello everyone and welcome to the next podcast for the gamingrig.co.uk. We have a special podcast tonight as we have Corey Drake, developer, creator and publisher of Ice Escape for Android and iOS. Welcome Corey.
How's it going? I'm glad to be here.
Good to have you on. We're also joined by Toby, a regular member of the podcast and the TGR team. Hello Toby.
Hello.
And Jay, soon to be new staff member with us. Hello Jay.
Hello, nice to be here.
Good to have you on. My name is Alan, the creator of the gamingrig.co.uk and your host for tonight's podcast. As Corey is pressed for time, we shall jump straight into it. Corey, you were on a previous podcast in 2013 with an early build of your game. Now is it out? And for those new to the game, what is Ice Escape?
Sure, Ice Escape is a puzzle-type mobile game where you slide on ice until you hit a wall or an obstacle. It's kind of like the ice caves in Pokemon or the lock puzzles in Skylanders. So it's a little puzzle game for mobile devices, also for Ouya, and I've actually been putting it on the Wii U. I've been working on that. So it's coming out for that, and I'm trying to get Windows 8 phone as well. It came out, I think, October-ish. They kind of came out staggered. First it was Android, then it was Apple, then it was Ouya. And so they came out all around that time, and it's been a pretty fun experience seeing people play the game and download it and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got in touch because you wanted to come back on and obviously write the game and kind of tell people obviously what you've learned and stuff. If you could maybe sum it up in a couple of words of what your main thing you've got from it.
The main thing I got from it, I think the hardest part was publishing. There's so many different rules, especially with iOS. Android was really easy, but with iOS and Ouya, there were many different rules that I had to follow and things to learn on how to do it. I'd say that was the biggest thing that I didn't know going into it that I learned.
Yeah, it's quite annoying really because all you're trying to do, because your game is free and it was more of an experiment you wanted to see and a challenge you wanted to create. So the fact that it's great to play is a bonus, and the fans should definitely play it. It is honestly the fact that they do make it quite difficult for less independent developers to get on the circuit, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. And I was trying to publish to iOS around the time that they had gotten hacked, so all their systems were down, and of course you never hear from customer service from them or anything, or I'm sorry, developer service, and it was a bit rough to publish to that. Oh, Android I accidentally published because with the iOS you have to submit it and then they approve it after a few weeks, and I thought it was going to be the case for Android as well, so I hit publish, and sure enough it just went up right away. I wanted to release at the same time, but yeah. I accidentally released the Android version 20 days early because I thought that I was submitting it for approval, and so that was an interesting difference.
So when it actually came into effect, did you see much surge in terms of downloads?
Yeah,
I've you to put it onto it quite early.
I've had a lot of weird situations with downloads. So the download story, if you will, for Android was it didn't really get many downloads at all. It would get maybe 0 to 10 a day. And then all of a sudden in December, just before December, it skyrocketed to, or not skyrocketed as far as, Angry Birds or anything, but for me, I was getting roughly 100 a day for a while during December. Now it's steadied out to around 60 a day. And I have no idea where it comes from. When I look in the statistics, it just tells me that about 50% of them are from other when it comes to what country it's from. So I have no idea what country maybe got it. They opened up a market there or something. I don't know, but it doesn't tell me what country it's coming from. So, but it's not the US, it's not UK, Canada, any of the ones that it lists. Those are roughly 10-15% of the downloads. So there's a bunch of downloads coming from somewhere else. iOS had a big surge in downloads at first. I was getting between 100 and 200 a day at first, and then really dropped down to it's 10 a day now. So it's a really interesting, if you look at the graph, it makes no sense to me, and I've kind of stopped wondering how these things happen. I think the iOS version, I got a bunch of downloads at the beginning because it was in the new category or whatever. So then when it got taken off that, then it kind of disappeared from downloads. But I'd say the Android store is much more flooded with a bunch of subpar apps because as much as going through Apple was a pain, it was a lot. It's a higher quality bar because of all the moderating they do.
That's true. Yeah.
So it has its ups and downs.
Well, it definitely sounds like it was a bit of a learning curve. For some of the problems you had, did you have any regrets? Are you really happy that it's out now? And
Oh, I'm pretty happy with it. When I went into it, I didn't have any, big delusions of grandeur. What I wanted was 500 downloads. I'm at about 4,000 right now. So, it's not insane numbers, but it's more than I expected, and I'm happy with it. So I think everything I did, I certainly learned from. I made a lot of toys for it. The Stegosaurus. I made some hard urethane toys. I've been getting into casting foam lately, so I've been making little. They feel and smell just like a Nerf ball. So they're little. If you guys know the Stegosaurus, the one that is the Stegosaurus made out of steak, you have a little. We throw them around. We juggle them at work. Things like that. It's a lot of fun to play with.
yeah, because last time we spoke, you were going to look into the 3D modeling and getting like a sort of franchise going, weren't you? So all of that's gone according to plan.
Yeah, I think I learned a lot. I have a 3D printer and I print out the models and then I make a silicone mold of that and then I usually cast it in. Most of them are urethane and then I just paint that. And I had to get much, much better at painting models and stuff. And then the foam I can't really paint. I have to dye it as I make the mixture because it's not a lot of paint takes to it well. So I'm still experimenting with stuff like that, but I haven't found a solution. But I went to DesignerCon. I had a booth there. And it was not, I didn't sell a whole lot, but it was really, opened my eyes to marketing and understanding what consumers want and stuff. And what I discovered was that I created a game, as far as gameplay goes, that is more for people our age who want to solve puzzles and have nostalgia to things, like I said in the last podcast, Banjo-Kazooie, Mario, kind of that style of graphics. But what I noticed was, as people were walking by and stuff, what really got the attention was the kids. I had the trailer playing on a TV at the booth, and the kids would just stop and stare at it while their parents kind of like, come on, let's go, kept pushing them along. So I designed a game that the look really appealed to younger children, but the gameplay more appealed to adults like us. And I think it really opened my eyes to how to market a game, how to stylize a game, to go to a target audience. And I think that was one of the huge things that I learned in making the toys and making the game itself and going to DesignerCon and all that.
But that's good you got out there as well, because obviously it's being successful in this sort of business is having your fingers in every piece of pie, really. And
yeah, totally.
You know how to get that done. I mean, I wouldn't be a very good journalist if I didn't ask. Do you have an idea where you want to go next, or are you just happy it's out now and to see?
Oh no, I mean I'm past Ice Escape. Other than I'm going to try to release it on the Wii U. I managed to get a dev kit. I'm not sure. I don't think I'm allowed to talk about. I had to sign a bunch of crazy contracts for it, so I don't know what I'm allowed to say about Wii U development. It's kind of weird, and I don't want to piss Nintendo off, so I won't say much about it. But I'm converting the game to work on the Wii U. I'm adding some new features to work with the controller and stuff. It's really neat to play, and I have it working on the controller and the screen. I have two different cameras set up, and you can switch them and stuff. It's pretty cool. But after that, I'm pretty much done with Ice Escape. I'm working on a new game right now that's kind of I haven't announced it yet. I was planning on announcing it on the anniversary of me starting Ice Escape, which was February something. So I think I'm going to announce my new game on February something. But I've already been building it. I've got power-ups set up. It's kind of a physics game, similar to how Angry Birds knocks stuff over, but I'm trying to not be so cliche. So there's some different... You're not launching stuff. You're kind of swimming around doing stuff, and there's different goals that you have to do. Almost a mix between a platformer and a physics-based puzzle game. So it's hopefully... It's all hand... It's none of it's 3D. I'm trying out my hand at 2D. And trying to get better at painting and things like that. So it's going to be a very different game, and I think I'm going to target it much better to a large range of people. There's going to be a kids mode where you just go around knocking stuff over, and then there's a challenge mode, and there's also a sandbox mode. I created an editor for it so that I can edit levels, when I'm in traffic or in line at Disneyland or something, But then I started realizing, I was making it more and more robust. With a little more work, it can be included with the game. And I'm going to make it so users can create their own levels and share it and send it to me. And I'd have to moderate it, of course, because I imagine people start making inappropriate words and pictures out of blocks and stuff, which I'm actually kind of looking forward to. I want to see what people make with it. That'll be really funny. But that's kind of the next step, and I'll be announcing that sometime next month.
Cool. Well, once you're up and running with that, you're welcome to come back on again. It'd be good to hear you obviously with that side of it, because you've given good thought into where you want to go with that one as well. So
yeah, that'd be awesome. I definitely like to spread the word about that. I created a new Twitter handle. It's at Corey Drake Games, because I had Ice Escape as a Twitter or something, and then I realized if I'm going to keep making more games, I don't want to create a new Twitter or new Facebook for every single game. So if you want to stay updated on that, I'd say I think you're already I think Gaming Rig is already following me on Twitter. So so you guys probably have seen some of the posts I've been making about it. Not this game, but just talking about game design in general.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, well, it's really fun. Funny you're talking about obviously bringing it onto the Nintendo Wii and all that other stuff, because we've got two very hardcore Nintendo fans in tonight, haven't we?
Yeah, boy.
How does that news go with you two then, going on the Wii?
That's pretty good. I mean, whenever you hear about kind of developers, obviously it's very much limited to kind of the mobile platform. So when you hear about someone going onto a large console like kind of Nintendo or Microsoft and that, it's always a bit of a deal.
Yeah, it won't be disc in stores type thing. It's going to be the eShop, but they're really good to indie developers right now, trying to get people on the platform and stuff. So it was relatively pain-free. I had to go through that kind of an interview process over the phone and stuff. And they have Unity built in for Wii U, and then you send you a development kit. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not allowed to say what I paid for it and stuff, but it's relatively cheap for a development kit, because they're really trying to reach out to indies and make it feasible for people like me, which is nice.
And I think with having a universal game like you've built for kids as well as adults, I think Nintendo is probably the better option going on, starting out the gate. Obviously, if you want to go further on down the line, depending on the popularity, you might obviously open it up and everything. But I think it's a good call going with Nintendo.
Yeah, I use an engine called Unity, if you guys are familiar with game development. Yeah. And that exports to all the platforms fairly seamlessly, so it's really nice. And the Wii U version is very seamless as well. And I had it up and running on the Wii within a good half an hour or so, pretty easily. So that was nice.
And is that tablet support as well, or is it just?
It's tablet. It's going to be tablet and control stick. I'm going to make it so you can just do either. And on the controller, I think I'm going to make it so it's a close-up of the character, and then on the screen is the main screen like you see in the game. And so you can swipe, and you get closer to the character, I think. I'm not going to add a huge amount of features for the Wii U, because, like I said, I'm moving on to this new project. But I think I'm going to add a few new features just to give people a reason to re-download it and things like that. So hopefully it'll reach a large audience there and people enjoy it, and it'll run smoothly. I'm probably going to update some of the graphics too, now that I have more power, as far as processing power goes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's just all, let's say it's building a foundation and then going from there, which is what you've done, really, haven't you? So. Yeah,
and that foundation, again, with Unity, I can't plug it enough, is how easy it is to make things. It's not just one button. There's a lot of things I had to learn about, differences between iOS and Android and computer that I had to change things for. But there's tons of documentation out there, so anybody looking to get into game development, Unity is definitely the way to go.
There you go, everybody. Some pro tips from you from the gaming rig. Fair dues. Toby, do you have any thoughts about the Nintendo thing?
Yeah, it sounds good. I think the eShop is a good outlet at the moment for not well-known developers starting out and stuff, because there is loads of good games that get seen and then spread the word enough, and it can spread like wildfire.
I think Nintendo are focusing on their eShop as well, because when you think of individual developers, you don't immediately think of the eShop. You think of like the PlayStation Store and the Xbox Arcade. So I think it's
Yeah,
really good going, like I say, for the content of Ice Escape itself, and then as well, they are trying to kind of cater to the next generation of developers for it on that side as well. I think.
I think all the consoles are kind of trying to reach out to indie developers, and I think that's really exciting because never before has it been indie games been this popular, and I think it's really starting to reach the mainstream more, especially with games like movies like Indie Game the Movie. If you guys have seen that, I think it's
Yeah,
really reaching the mainstream more.
Watching Indie Game the movie it's a harrowing experience.
Yeah, it's funny. I experienced a lot of the same things that happened in Indie Game the movie, except just on a much smaller scale. The stakes aren't high for me like they are for the people in that movie. So it was a bit more relaxed for me, but a lot of the same kind of things
Well,
happened in that movie.
on that same kind of topic, everyone in kind of the movie, obviously people who develop Braid and people who develop Fez and stuff like that, they all, when you were if anyone does get a chance to watch Indie Game the movie, I'd highly recommend it. It's a very interesting kind of documentary into how they kind of go about it and things such as that. But every single one of the people there had like kind of a central philosophy. What would you say is your central philosophy around kind of being an individual developer and indeed bringing a game out in a market that can be new and competitive?
My philosophy, my games right now don't have much of a story of any sort. It's just kind of cute characters trying to attain fun gameplay right now. I think in the future I'll be developing games that have more meaning to them, but right now it's more about me just learning the technology, learning the workflow, so that when it comes time for me to make more in-depth, more story-based things, I'll just be able to without having to worry so much about learning the technology and things like that. So I think to that point, I haven't really developed a philosophy yet. I'm kind of just making games for stuff that I like, something I might like to play and hopefully others will like to play too. And then, I think I'm going to kind of discover that as I go with my next few games.
Sounds like you've got a pretty good philosophy standing there already.
Well, yeah, it's just my philosophy is I want to try to find a philosophy eventually. How about that? That's a good one.
I think a lot of it's your nostalgia, though. Like you say, you're making a game you want to play, but you have a lot of ties, especially you said with the music. Like you had your audio guy working that. He had elements of Banjo-Kazooie music to it, and you can actually pick up and you can see that from the game. So I think you are trying to bring back that nostalgia pick up and play sort of concept, aren't you?
Sure. The nostalgia factor, I think, was greater in Ice Escape than it is in my new game. My new game is kind of more styled in kind of Angry Birds looking, but it's all more of a hand-painted kind of thing like Braid, except I'm nowhere near as good of a painter as whoever painted Braid. Was that Jonathan Blow who did the art as well, or was he just a programmer?
No, I think he pretty much took it from scratch.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I guess I'm trying to do the same thing, but I'm not quite as good of an artist or programmer for that matter. But trying to kind of go with that style. So it's, what I learned from Ice Escape was I think a lot of people kind of don't care for 3D so much, at least right now. The trend, I think, is more towards unique, not necessarily unique, but a certain type of art style that makes people... I think this current preference to style is not really 3D right now. So that's why I'm trying my hand at 2D and trying to still make something that is relatively unique and different.
Been around for a couple of years. I think people are a bit tired of the graphic side of it, right? We can do mocap and our games can look amazing, but if you've got an amazing looking game but there's nothing else to it, I think people are starting to more away. It's like a big circle. We had complaints where we had gameplay but no graphics. Now we've got graphics but no original gameplay. So, and that's where a lot of the indie guys are coming in and kind of, like with The Walking Dead, that one game of the year, and that is a point and click game and cartoon style. You wouldn't think those two in this generation would have gone hand in hand so well, but I think people are just looking for that originality they don't get from quote unquote Call of Duty every year.
Yeah, I think there's a place for both. I think I'm not really a fan of the Call of Duties. I'm not a great player of FPSs and things like that. I'm just no good at them. I play Halo, because I'm following that story. It's like a movie, I'm kind of tired of the multiplayer in Halo, but nor do I have time for it nowadays anyway. But I think there's a place for both. People like the high-end graphics, but I think people can also like the lower-end graphics as long as the gameplay is good for both. And I think that's really what the focus is on with such a flooding of games in both, App Store, Android Store, in fact, flooding of AAA games. There's just so many and they're so expensive that people really want to focus on buying something that has good gameplay to get more bang for their buck. So I think no matter what kind of graphics you have, the graphics will pull people in initially, but I think what really, there's acquisition and then there's retention in mobile games, or in any game. You want to have acquisition to acquire the people to get them to start playing, and then it has to be fun to retain their attention and keep them playing. And I think the graphics are more about acquisition sometimes, and then the gameplay is the stuff that keeps people playing. And I think that's why this trend of indie games becoming so much bigger is because a lot of more risky ideas are coming out of it, where big companies won't take risks. They'll just keep making the same stuff, and people are now wanting new original ideas. And I think that's why, and I think the big companies are starting to notice that with the eShop, Xbox Live Arcade, PSN. So I think they've noticed that, and they're trying to reach out to indie developers more and make it much more accessible.
Yeah, definitely.
I think with the independent games as well, one really important thing, which you could probably agree with on this, is people are gravitating towards indie games because they're made by people who love games, not just necessarily people who are working as part of the team, who are doing it as an everyday thing. These people who putting their own time, their own resources into making something that, that they've really 100% heart has gone into it.
Sure, especially if you know the story of the developers. For instance, let's use Indie Game the movie as an example again. You hear about these developers like Edmund McMillan and all the story behind what all of the art means to him and all that stuff, and you get that personal connection with the developer. It's not just some faceless company. You can follow these individuals on Twitter talking about the game and giving their ideas about game design and story design and just art in general, and you can really have much more of a connection to the game outside of the game because you feel connected to the people who built it because they're more accessible to you than a big company. And I think that's one of the big strengths of indie gaming.
How long have you been working on kind of indie games and making your own development for, rounded about?
About 11 months.
About 11 months. So you're quite, relatively speaking, you're quite new to the whole kind of development scene with regards to indie games. Is that right?
I'm new to indie games, yeah.
Yeah. So how do you feel then as essentially the new blood, the part of the new generation of the indie game development? How to see your game up there and to have people like me and other people who are playing it right now on the lovely Alien level that was mentioned previously?
Oh, well, I love it. It's especially when there was somebody at DesignerCon who really wanted a Stegosaurus toy, but his parents wouldn't get it from him. They're like, no, that's stupid. And he was just so excited about it, and he wanted it so bad. And I waved him back over. I said, hey, you know what? This is for free. And he was so excited about it, and that is what really makes it worth it for me, is when people are genuinely excited about my game, and that's what I do it for. I love that.
And going back on the previous point as well, that's something that you wouldn't get possibly with a large AAA company. That's the personal touch which indie games have brought back to the gaming scene.
Sure, yeah. I try to keep my day job separate from indie gaming, but I work at a large game studio by day, and I don't have a connection to that game the way I do to Ice Escape. I mean, it's a cool game, and I love working on it and stuff, and kids love this game, but I don't have that same connection. And this game has 4 million downloads compared to my 4,000, but I still feel more connected to that than to my day job, because it's like I see the personal, I see people leaving comments or leaving reviews or commenting on trailers and stuff, and that's what really makes game development in general worth it for me.
Toby, do you have any questions for Corey?
Yeah, I was going to say, did you get much like feedback from friends and family and stuff? Did they all tell you? Did they play the game?
The game has really good ratings on every store because all of my friends went and downloaded it and rated it and reviewed it positively. There's a handful of bad ratings. I think on the Android store, there's one or two. So some people have rated it bad. Not many people have left bad feedback. Usually, so far people have only just left 1 star without a comment and not saying why they didn't like it. Some people don't like the graphics. Some people have found bugs and are unhappy with that, and I try to fix them when that happens. But yeah, I haven't really had any bad feedback necessarily. Not to say that there is no bad feedback. I'm sure, some people have hated the game and just not said anything. But so far, it's mostly been just review sites who usually review it nicely. And it doesn't hurt that it's a free game, so I think people kind of give it more slack because of that. That they didn't spend money on something if they didn't like it. It's just like, okay, I'm just going to uninstall this if they don't like it, rather than, I paid $1 for this, so I'm mad, I'm going to rate it badly. So,
and there's no ads as well, which is brilliant.
Yeah, I don't... You know what? I'm going to go on the record of saying, if it's in my power, I will never put advertisements in any of my games. And you can quote me on that. But if it's
you heard it here first on 14th of January 2014.
That's right. The next game I'm making is going to have some in-app purchases, not because I intend to make money, but just because I need to learn how to do that. For iOS, I have to submit screenshots of each in-app purchase for them to get approved, and there's a bunch of weird things that is just part of development that I have to learn anyway. So the game will be free, and it's going to be super playable without having to buy anything, but you can buy stuff, and it's mainly just for learning how to make in-app purchases rather than trying to gouge players.
This new game, will it be multi-platform again, or will you focus on Android and iOS for the meantime?
Nope, it's going to be multi-platform. I'm going to put it on iOS, Android, Ouya, Windows Phone. If I still have the Wii U development kit by then, I'm going to put it on the Wii U as well. So I'm going to put it on all the platforms that I can when I can, because it's still Unity. It's still super easy to move to different platforms. And all of the level, how I was saying you could create levels and submit them, those will all be downloaded from a centralized place that's version or OS agnostic, so it's just going to download a file and it will regenerate it inside of the game. So you could make a game on Android and share that with somebody on an iOS or Ouya and stuff. So it's all going to be multi-platform and go between all of them.
Sounds quite exciting. Good plans going on there. You said earlier on about coming across bugs and things like that. Is it quite an easy process to then update if you do come across bugs and the game's now been released? Do you have to pull the game off and then put it back up, or?
No, the process is you fix the bug, you re-upload a new installer to the Android or the Google Play website, and then it goes live, after a certain amount of just a few hours for Android. For iOS, you have to, you have to do a bunch of stuff, like get a provisioning profile, get a certificate, put your device on that provisioning profile, then put it together into a package, then send that, and it has to do a bunch of automatic approval stuff, and then somebody has to take 2 weeks to look at it, and then it gets updated. So Android I can do in a few hours. iOS, it takes a couple weeks of not hearing back from them, and then it could get rejected for one reason or another, and then I'd have to wait another 2 weeks. So and Ouya is pretty quick about it too. They take like a day for me.
It's quite a lengthy process for iOS then, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not fun because by day I mainly use my PC, and I mainly only use my Mac for, I'm not against Macs or anything. I'm just more comfortable on a PC, and I really only use my Mac for updating the iOS version, and it's kind of a hassle because I got to plug it in because I've got so many things plugged into my desk. I have to switch out power cords and stuff, and it's kind of a hassle just to set it up. and then go in and change the code and test it, rebuild, resubmit. So it's not the most fun process to update the game for iOS at least.
I can definitely see that. All right, just talking to Toby and Jay. Toby, what's your experience of the game so far?
Well, I've got through World 1. Well, I'm on the last level of World 1. But yeah, it's a cool little, a neat idea. And I like the different like stars you get for each individual achievement. So you could get 2 stars, but like they're for different things. Whereas a lot of games, they do it so you have 3 stars based on one overall performance. But you've done it so it's 3 different.
No, I know what you mean. The 3 different stars are finish the level, you get 1 star, collect all the bones, you get another star, do it in the minimum amount of moves, you get the 3rd star. I don't know if I'm going to do that in this next game. In fact, I may forego a star system altogether for this new game and just try to come up with something new. So we'll see how I do the scoring in this one. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I thought it was a cool idea. But yeah, I'm yet to complete the whole thing, but I'm going to keep at it. And so I'm just at the end of World 1, basically. That's good.
Yeah, you can, like I was saying before the podcast, you can jump around to the first level of each chapter just so you can go see some of the more cooler stuff. The only downside to that is if you don't learn some of the mechanics that are earlier on in the game. That's the only problem. But I figured if people just happen to stumble on the other levels, I think I like to give people the benefit of the doubt sometimes and realize that they might figure it out. But likely people are going to go through it one at a time, and that's even better because then they learn every mechanic for sure.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. I've just been going through a thing. I like doing it in sequence. And then
that's how I usually play games.
Yeah, it's got that pick up and try again feel though, because with the star system, like, or if you don't do it in the set amount of moves, the least amount, like I did the first 2 levels, and I think, actually no, 3 or 4 probably, and I didn't do it in the least amount of moves, so I had to go back and do it like straight away. I couldn't leave it on 2 stars.
Yeah, yeah. I usually try to 3-star everything when I play.
Yeah.
Some games are just too hard though.
Yeah, definitely.
I play Angry Birds and Where's My Water and
Angry Birds I just gave up on. I didn't even bother with the 3 stars on there.
Yeah, it's. I don't think I've ever fully 3-starred a game. It's too hard.
It does. It gets a bit tedious after a while, but
yeah.
I think with the way that you've done it, it's a kind of more lenient approach, I guess. It's a good.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm a fan of it myself. I was trying to do something different and see how it worked, and I have mostly gotten positive feedback on it, like you just said. I'm not sure if I personally like it, so I'm kind of in the air about what I'm going to do for the next one.
Yeah, it's cool. At least you can try. You've tried, and you can try new things and see what works and what doesn't work. That's, I guess, what is the good thing about being in your position and making games and stuff.
Yeah, like right now, I can put whatever I want in the game with really no consequences as an indie developer, and really experiment with what works for people, what doesn't, and just what really. Especially with this next game, is there's a lot of emergent gameplay that comes from the physics. So there's a lot of things that I didn't intend to happen, but I see people doing it, and it's a lot of fun. And I think, oh, well, I can make a whole level out of what this person that because I watch my friends play it and stuff. Yeah. So I see them do this one thing that they're having fun with, and there's really no point to do. But I'm like, oh, well, I could use what they've discovered to make a new level out of it. So I think there's a lot of really cool gameplay that's going to come out of this next game.
Oh, cool.
So I'm especially excited about that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It's a lot more open-ended.
It definitely sounds like you're going for a different approach with the next one, which is what's nice. Some people, when they usually do a second game or a second movie, it's usually what they call a sequel, whereby you're going for a complete different approach.
Yeah, I kind of have a list of things that I want to learn in, each game. Like the last one was just learn how to publish, learn how to make a basic, menu and 3-star system, saving and all that. For this next game, the main focuses are learn to do in-app purchases, learn to use the Unity's new 2D physics engine, get better at 2D art, and learn how to save out XML files, or the type of file that I'm going to save out to make it so people can share levels and stuff. To learn how to read and write those from the internet is something I'm working on right now. And build an editor.
Be able to control what people send through to you and what gets published.
Yeah, nobody's going to be able to write bad words out of blocks and try to submit that, so I have to approve it. I'm going to have different modes too. There's going to be a kids mode that is just knocking stuff over, and I will never charge in-app purchases in that mode. I don't believe in monetizing children. I think monetizing should only happen in games that are, I don't know, maybe 14 and above or 16 and above.
Yeah, so they know what it is.
And so parents can be rest assured that when their kids are playing the kids mode, if they just set them up with that, they're never going to be asked to spend $1 for this power up and stuff like that. There's in the challenge mode, there's going to be the ability to buy the power ups, but you can still earn them in the game. You can just buy, a pack of 5 for $1, and it's a physics-based game. There's one that's the rainbow power up that I make a rainbow appear behind him, and I just increase his mass from maybe 10 to 100, and he just knocks everything out of the way like crazy. It's super fun to play. It's super broken. It's just you just destroy the level when you do it, but it's so much fun. It's my favorite power up, and for maybe $5, which is going to be kind of the high end price, you can buy an infinite number of those and just destroy everything in the entire game. And which you kind of ruin the game that way, but if you want to buy that and do that, that's up to you. You can pay and I'm not going to do any of the $1.99 crap. I don't like that. I'm going to make it a full $1, $2, $3, or whatever I do for the infinite power-ups and stuff. I want to, because everybody uses those tricks like $1.99. It's really $2, but they're trying to trick your mind, which I guess is effective because everybody does it. But I don't know. I kind of want to make a point of not doing that. I'm a rebel. What can I say?
Definitely. It sounds to me you've obviously got the gamer in mind, and you want to build a fan base up as well because of that reason, don't you? Yeah,
it's kind of a trivial thing, but it's something I want to try. And I think, being honest with a player and just being like, yeah, this is just $1. I'm not gonna try to do any mind tricks with you. Maybe that will help people be happier about buying in-app purchases. Who knows? But yeah, so that's kind of the plan for that. No charging children, and treat adults like, yeah, it's $1. It's not 99 cents.
Yeah, no mind games, as you say.
Yeah. So that's kind of the direction that I want to go with in-app purchases in this one, which a company would never do because it's a stupid business decision, and I know that. But I'm not doing it for that point. So that's another way that I get to experiment.
Well, so like you say as well, it's giving them the option to they can have it or they don't have to. There's like some games that are out now seem to have this microtransaction, they call it, and they seem to want to force it on people where it used to be a choice. And it's getting worse and worse as we go along now, especially with certain major developers like EA and things like that. And by sounds of it, you're adapting it, but you're giving them a choice. Look, you don't have to have it even if you don't want to.
Totally. It's definitely going to be a luxury thing. A lot of games, they'll force, like Candy Crush. You really can't get, at a certain point, it becomes more luck to be able to finish a level in Candy Crush than skill, because things just happen to have to line up right to be able to finish certain levels without using power-ups. And that's where they really start to get at you. Like, oh, if you only had these extra few moves, you could win and buy this for $1. Or, no, not $1, 99 cents. And,
it gets frustrating.
Yeah, and it's just some games, they're built to require that, which makes sense as far as business goes, and clearly it works because they make tons of money. But for my purposes, I don't want to force people to spend money. So it's kind of like, if you want to have extra crazy fun and just destroy everything in the level, that's your choice, and I'm going to give that to them.
Very cool, very cool. All right, Jay, well, by the sounds of it, you're reviewing real time. You're still playing it as we're doing the podcast. How are you finding it?
Yeah, it's pretty fun. A point that was brought up before the podcast, which I thought was very much the same as this, is the the ice levels in the Pokemon games. very kind of slip and slide, work out where you're going. Obviously, with more of a game built around it, though. One thing I said about it before is that it's very easy to pick up and play. It's very traditional in that kind of sense that it's easy to pick up and you know exactly what you do in a couple of minutes into playing, but it's very difficult to master as far as the scoring system goes.
The toughest thing was having to when I build these levels and trying to figure out what's too hard and what's not too hard, trying to find that balance and just constant testing with friends and things like that. That was the hardest part, and all of the minimum amount of moves are basically my high score. So it's probably possible to get even less moves than the minimum amount because it's really just me playing hundreds of times, and some of them I know that it's the minimum amount. Like, I just know, but some people have surprised me and found quicker ways, and I have to update the game to fix that. I applaud people who find a quicker way because they essentially beat the person who made the game at the game. and I applaud that, and I fix it promptly. Or I try to fix it promptly. If I should have built some kind of feedback system into the game. I never ended up doing that, but I should have built it so that, if they have even less moves than the minimum amount of moves, it sends me an email. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, so they must have did this, and then fix it. But I didn't do that, so that would have been great feedback. So a good lesson for next time.
Or even that, or kind of levels where it says do this in a certain amount of moves, and then if they get less than moves than that, I'm going to high score or something similar.
Yeah, that's true. That's kind of what the next game's going to be like. Is there's going to be a bunch of different game modes. Some of them are just going to be destroy all the castles, but some of them are going to be try to get through these loops in a certain amount of time. Or there's some manatees that eat the grass. There's like the seaweed at the bottom of the ocean. So you have to try to use. There's a bunch of different ways that you can use to try to stop the manatees. You can try to stop them yourself, but they're much bigger than you, and they just kind of push you out of the way eventually. And you maybe have to grab a block and try to put blocks in front of them so that they cannot get to the grass. And there's going to be multiple ways to finish all of these puzzles, and a lot of that's just emerging. Like, I'm not designing it; it's just showing up. Like, oh, my friend, because a bunch of my friends have been playtesting the game, and they discover a way to do something, and sometimes it gives me an idea of how to make the gameplay or make an entirely new game mode out of something that they've done just playing around with the physics. And that's what's really neat about having people play the game and test it and find things that you didn't even think of, which is very helpful.
Very, but it sounds like it's all a learning curve then as well. What your friends' feedback, what you've learned, is all kind of going through to this next one, which sounds like it's going to be a bigger and bolder game. So quite excited to know more about that.
Yeah, I'm considering doing a Kickstarter for it. I originally went into it not thinking about doing a Kickstarter at all, but the more I do it, I think it would be a good way to just pay for some of the fees associated with publishing. I wouldn't do more than a few thousand, I don't think. But just something to pay for those extra costs that I have. Maybe pay to make some T-shirts, because I bought way too many T-shirts for Ice Escape. I haven't sold enough. I haven't set up an eShop or anything. It was just at DesignerCon. I sold a fair amount at DesignerCon, but not enough for what I have. So a lot of people got the same Christmas gift this year. They got Ice Escape T-shirts.
Fair enough. Well, that's great then. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Corey? I mean, I know last time we spoke there was a production novel website. Is there a website with more details on it, or is it more download the game and go from there?
No, well, you can search Ice Escape Stegosaurus Rescue, or just search Stegosaurus on any of the stores. I think I've got it on Amazon Store, Google Play Store, iOS Store, Ouya Store, and soon to Windows Phone. And if you just search Stegosaurus on there, it kind of pops up. But you can go to www.iceescapegame.com, and then that has it has the trailer, some images, support email, things like that. So.
Okay, and can you just give people your new Twitter handle again?
Yeah, the new Twitter handle is at Corey Drake Games, and Corey Drake is spelled CoreyDrake.
Brilliant.
So it'd be great if people followed me. That's what I update the most nowadays. So come February.
The real-time updates for the new game are all going on there, all on your Twitter feed.
Yeah, and so basically all of that will go through there, and all of the announcements, all of the work in progress photos, and I'm hoping to put out a demo too to get more feedback, because a lot of the feedback that I get from friends is positive because they're my friends. So I'm hoping to, as much as it might be hard, get some really jaded and angry internet user feedback from some people. I don't want it, but I need it. So I'm going to probably put a demo out for people to play, and if they want to tear it apart, then ultimately it helps. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be hard to hear, but it is what helps make the game better. So definitely, if you want to try a demo in the next couple months, follow me on Twitter, and I'll be putting it up there.
Cool. Be careful when you open Pandora's box, is all I'll say.
Yeah, I remember the first time I got my first 1-star review. It was, I knew it was coming.
Rocking back and forth.
yeah, it was. I knew it was going to happen. It's an internet game, but it still had a little bit of a sting to it. But I'm over it now. So yeah,
you just kind of take it on the chin, really, haven't you? It's the annoying thing. You can't please everybody.
Yeah, and if you want to be a game developer, you have to have a thick skin. And I've been pretty lucky so far with people being nice to me, but I've only had roughly 4,000 downloads right now, so it's not a huge audience to be coming at me and saying bad things. If I were to make a game that had 5 million downloads, then there's going to be a lot more people, if they don't like it, telling me that they don't like it and why. So I think it's good. That's one of the good things about it not being crazy downloaded and famous or anything, because I still have to build up that thick skin, and I am. I'm definitely going to get I want to get criticism on my next game and really forge it into something solid and fun to play. So that is what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to an announcement in February, and you're welcome. As I say, once that's out and all pre-production again, you're welcome to get back in touch with us, and we'll have you on again, no problem.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to.
Cool, very cool. All right, Toby, Jay, anything else you'd like to say?
I'd probably want to ask as well, because I'm actually doing a design course myself, so it's quite interesting speaking to someone who's actually working in the industry as such. Would you have any tips for anyone out there who is doing designing or is embarking on their own kind of games career? What would you say is the best thing you could tell them to help with that?
Well, a great thing for a designer to have is programming abilities. Not that you'll be programming the game necessarily, but to be able to understand what the constraints are of a particular engine, or just how hard things are in general for program, or art limitations for video games. If you're doing a mobile game, there's a lot more art limitations that go into it, and for a designer especially, it would be good to know what the limitations are, to know some of the art and some of the programming. And the more you know about these other aspects, it's definitely going to help in design. And especially in a situation like mine, I don't really want to be a designer necessarily, but if I did, I have the ability to make my own games on my own for my resume and demo reel and stuff, to say, yeah, I programmed and did the art, but I also designed this. So you can show your design skills without needing to rely on anybody else. So to any designers, I definitely say, learn some of the art, learn some of the programming, and that would definitely be, you don't have to be an expert, just know some of it. And I think that goes a long way for being a game designer.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Valuable advice there. All right, well, thank you all for coming out tonight.
Yeah, no problem.
As I say, fans, if you are listening, do check out the game. Why Not is free, and it also helps a great new indie developer on the circuit. And it's really good fun. So, what more can you say to that? If you're new to TGR, be sure to check us out at gamingrig.co.uk, facebook.com/TGRUK, and twitter.com/TGR_UK. All right, good night, everybody.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. Good night, guys.
Thank you very much. Take care.
And see you all for the next podcast at the end of January. Peace out.